Hey everyone, this is the Hot Revenge community. Ready to listen to a new hot story? Then get comfortable and we're starting. My name is Eliza, and I'm 26. The day I first unlocked the door to my historic loft, I didn't record the moment. I skipped the celebratory social media post complete with a "We Did It" soundtrack. I simply stood on the old wood floor and took a deep breath. I needed to remember the sound of real quiet again. It wasn't the kind of strained silence I grew up enduring. But that peace was short-lived. I walked farther in, and there they were. My father, Gary, and my mother, Denise, were sitting on my couch. My mother greeted me with her usual bright but insincere smile. "Oh, you're home," she said. "We decided this will be a property for the whole family. We just assumed you wouldn't mind." Have you ever felt like you were completely invisible to your own relatives? Feel free to share your stories below. I didn't yell. I didn't question how they dared do this. I only watched them. My mother mistook my total silence for agreement. This was a mistake she had made constantly throughout my entire life. "See, it's much nicer now that we are all together," she stated. She walked toward my antique refrigerator. She tapped a sheet of paper that was taped right onto the door. She said she had even created a list to make sure everything was completely fair. I moved closer to look. It wasn't a chart at all. It was a bill for a life I never wanted. It was titled the Family Expense Chart. The items were written in my mother's neat, looping script. Item 1, Eliza's rent. 18 years living at home, retroactive. Item 2, utility expenses split 3 ways. Item 3, lifestyle upgrades required for my sister's creative needs. My vision immediately narrowed. Retroactive rent for being a child. They were not just taking over my current life. They were charging me for my past. "We took the master bedroom, naturally," my father called out from the hallway. He didn't even bother looking in my direction. "The light is much better there for your mother to read," he continued. "You can use the smaller room near the entrance. It should be quieter for you anyway." Quieter. My entire existence had been defined by their constant noise. My mother chimed in brightly, "And my sister is here too." She was referring to my 28-year-old sister, Taylor. "She's using the guest room. It has the perfect lighting for her influencing career." My mother explained that my sister was setting up her workspace right now. I glanced toward the guest room. The door was open. I could clearly see the harsh white glare of a ring light already set up on a tripod. 3 empty designer luggage cases were tossed all over the floor. My sister was already monetizing my spare room. They were so comfortable and so completely entitled. They had simply walked into my sanctuary, the only place on earth I had built just for myself. I loved this historic loft for all its imperfections, the brick, the old wood. But they had colonized it within mere hours. I could smell the food they had brought. Their coats were hanging on my hooks. Their shoes were next to my door. They were using my things, sleeping in my bed, and now they were presenting me with an invoice for their presence. I just stood there motionless. I let the silence stretch out. They fully expected a confrontation. They were waiting for tears. They anticipated the overly emotional Eliza they had always complained about. What they did not expect was the version of me who spends years restoring rare, old books. The Eliza who knew that fixing something truly damaged requires patience, not brute force. It needs precision. And it requires using tools they didn't even realize I possessed. My relatives were waiting for my scream. They braced themselves for a dramatic scene, the one they had created over 20 years and then endlessly criticized. But that person was gone now. I stood still, letting their heavy expectations hang in the air, completely useless. Then I slowly turned and walked to my workbench. This was my corner of the loft where I fixed old books. My kintsugi bowl was nearby, a half-finished piece of broken pottery. I was carefully reassembling it with gold lacquer. It served as a reminder. You can be broken, yet still beautiful and ultimately stronger for the experience. I walked back to the kitchen, passing my mother. I grabbed her family expense chart off the refrigerator. The paper felt weak and flimsy in my hand. I didn't tear it up. I calmly crushed it into a tight, frustrated ball and tossed it into the recycling bin. "Eliza, what exactly do you think you are doing?" my mother began to ask. I ignored her entirely. I retrieved a single printed page from my desk. I had prepared this 2 years prior. I returned to the refrigerator, used the exact same magnets, and taped the sheet where her chart had been. It read, Official Policy Notice, AR Antiquarian Restoration LLC Trust. My father squinted at the text. What is this nonsense? Some kind of joke? My mother and sister moved in closer, reading the formal legal language. Monday, I stated. My voice was low, but it commanded the room's attention. At 10 a.m., all occupants who are unauthorized must leave the property. They just stared. The bewilderment on their faces was obvious. My family anticipated me screaming. They waited for the theatrics and the eventual breakdown. They truly thrive on that emotional mess. But they don't understand my current quiet state. They don't grasp that this stillness isn't weakness. It's a survival strategy I've practiced for years. It's a suit of armor built over decades. You learn not to react when you know they will weaponize every single reaction against you. Every tear is labeled as manipulation. Every angry word is proof of your instability. So you learn to become still. You learn to watch carefully. You learn how to build mental chains around your own feelings until the perfect time to use them arrives. You wait until you possess the leverage. I spent my whole life being the victim in their emotional narratives. So, 2 years ago, I chose to become a legal entity instead. Unauthorized occupants, my mother whispered, the words catching in her throat. Eliza, that's us. We are your family, your guests. Your guests, I corrected her, keeping my tone perfectly even. And your visit is ending, Monday at 10 a.m. They probably assumed I created this formal document out of resentment. They were mistaken. It was born from harsh experience. I haven't always handled things so systematically. I used to be the person who held on to hope. My hope finally vanished 3 years earlier. My maternal grandfather died. He had been a reserved man, fond of carpentry, and he always smelled like fresh wood dust. He bequeathed $17,000 to me and the same amount to my sister. This was the very first time in my life I owned something truly mine, without question. A week passed, and my parents requested an emergency dinner meeting. My sister, Taylor, fresh off yet another unsuccessful internship, announced a new career goal. She planned to become a luxury real estate agent. She simply required, as my mother phrased it, some initial capital for her required courses and a suitable professional wardrobe. You are excellent at saving, Eliza, my mother told me across the table, smiling. Your sister just needs a push. You should loan her the money from your inheritance. That's what family does, correct? They definitely use the word lend. My father, Gary, agreed with a nod. It's an investment, Eliza, an investment in your sister's future. I looked over at my sister. She was already busy scrolling through different designer websites on her phone. I went ahead and did it. I transferred the entire $17,000. I hoped, perhaps, this action would finally be enough. Maybe this effort would make them acknowledge me. I thought this might be my ticket into their inner circle. A month later, my sister posted her first career update. She was sitting in a beachfront cabana in Bali. She had used my grandfather's funds, my money, to define her personal brand during a 2-week extravagant vacation. She failed the licensing exam 2 separate times. Then she decided the whole industry didn't match her personal vibe. I never recovered a single penny of that $17,000. That specific event made me realize they would simply never stop taking things. They viewed my financial stability as their personal excess cash. My savings were their emergency fund, and my inheritance was just their next vacation budget. Several weeks later, I was working. I was restoring a set of botany books from the 18th century for a client. His financial advisor, Ethan, visited the loft to manage the insurance assessment. He was different from my relatives. He was reserved and observant. Ethan watched me working for maybe 20 minutes. Then he asked, "How do you protect your assets?" I nearly laughed out loud. "What assets are those?" I asked. "Your specific skill set," he replied. "Your time and your future." We met that evening for coffee, and I described the Bali situation to him. He didn't say, "That is terrible." Instead, he responded, "That sounds like a completely predictable pattern." Ethan explained that effective boundaries are not based on emotions. They aren't just dinner table arguments, either. Real boundaries are legal and structural. He taught me how to construct a protective fortress using paperwork instead of simple anger. Therefore, I did more than just save money to purchase this loft. I established the AR Antiquarian Restoration LLC Trust. The trust purchased the building. I personally do not own the property. The trust holds the ownership. I am only the sole manager. I must follow the specific bylaws that I personally drafted. These bylaws detail exactly who can occupy the space. They mandate formal leasing contracts, and these rules make absolutely zero exceptions for people, just because they share my DNA. This structure is a solid barrier that cannot be penetrated by emotional appeals. It's a contract that cannot be broken by guilt trips. I wasn't just purchasing a residence. I was buying my own freedom. I simply never imagined I would actually need to activate it. My family treated the official policy notice like a silly joke. They saw it as a minor fit of rebellion from their quiet sister. By Sunday morning, my relatives were back to performing their normal lives, just now inside my property. I woke up to the strong smell of burnt coffee and my phone vibrating constantly. My social media feed was already busy. My mother, Denise, had posted a picture of the sunrise at 7 a.m. The caption read, "It feels heartbreaking when some children forget the people who raised them. Praying for clarity." Clarity. As if I was the confused one. A minute later, my sister's Instagram story went live. She was posing in front of my antique mirror, using a filter that faded everything to beige. "Hey everyone, welcome to my brand new creative HQ," she chirped. She panned the phone across my living room. "My poor sister is going through a tough time right now. She's just extremely envious of the new atmosphere, but we're letting her work it out." She added the tags Boss Babe, Charleston Vibes, and Family Drama. She was using my eviction notice as online content. That was the absolute breaking point. The inner calm I had maintained didn't disappear. It actually sharpened my resolve. I called Wallace, the trust's attorney. "They aren't just ignoring the notice, Wallace," I said, keeping my voice quiet. "They are actively turning it into a monetization opportunity." "I will be there in 60 minutes, he responded. Wallace was unlike Ethan. He wasn't a friend. He was a 60-year-old former litigator who specialized in handling aggressive trust management situations. He wore expensive three-piece suits and smelled like premium ink. He was, frankly, exactly the professional I required. Wallace arrived at 9:30 a.m. Sharp. He looked like he owned the entire city block of Portland. My parents were in the kitchen. They were arguing over which specific groceries they might allow me to buy later. "Good morning," Wallace stated calmly, stepping into the loft space. His tone was perfectly polite, yet somehow intimidating. "Who are you?" My father, Gary, demanded, crossing his arms in front of him. "I am Wallace," the lawyer replied. "Legal counsel for the AR Antiquarian Restoration LLC Trust. I am here to formally serve you with a notice to vacate." He placed a very thick, bound legal document onto my kitchen counter, which was clean for once. "This is completely illegal harassment," my mother, Denise, snapped at him. "This is our daughter's home." "Actually, ma'am," Wallace countered, "this is the trust's property. Your daughter, Eliza, is merely the acting manager. As the designated manager, she is legally required by the established bylaws to remove all unauthorized occupants. That means you." He then pointed toward the mail pile on a small side table. "You have also been illegally redirecting your personal mail to this address," he noted. "That includes, I see here, Mr. Gary's driver's license renewal and a number of credit card statements. That action constitutes mail fraud. It complicates your legal standing considerably." My father immediately looked ill. My mother glared at me. Her eyes were full of a deep sense of betrayal, as if I were the one who had committed some terrible offense. "You are really enjoying this, aren't you?" My sister, Taylor, sneered from the hallway. All this silly legal drama. I am simply adhering to policy, I responded, timing my reply perfectly. Just then, the main building buzzer rang. That will be for me, Wallace said. He went downstairs briefly. When he came back up, he carried a certified mail envelope. He didn't hand it to me. He looked directly at my father. Mr. Gary, this envelope is also addressed to you here at this residence. My father took the letter. His hand was trembling slightly as he quickly ripped it open. My mother leaned in close to read over his shoulder. I watched her expression shift, from annoyed to confused and finally to utterly white. She stumbled backward slightly and had to grasp the counter for support. Denise, what happened? My sister asked nervously. My father couldn't manage to form the words. He simply dropped the paper. Wallace calmly bent down, retrieved the letter, and read the heading out loud in his same quiet, polite voice. Final notice of foreclosure. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Henderson, Wallace continued reading. Your property is scheduled to be sold at public auction. He paused, looking up at them. My goodness, he murmured. It seems the actual reason you are here wasn't intended as a family gathering at all. It appears you are currently homeless. That moment provided the final piece of the puzzle. It wasn't just simple selfishness. It was profound humiliation. There is a precise reason why a family losing everything suddenly adopts such an arrogant posture. It is the false sense of authority that comes from possessing an empty bank account. My family's entire identity was not founded on having good character, or integrity, or kindness. It was based exclusively on material possessions. Having the right house in the proper neighborhood, having the apparently successful younger daughter, maintaining the appearance of stability. Their social status was merely a costume which they had leased using credit. When the bank arrived to reclaim that costume, when they lost their family house, they didn't just lose the structure. They lost who they were. They were empty inside. So they came straight to me. They didn't come seeking my help. They came to steal. They came to claim my stability, my residence, and my life. They planned to wear it like their newest costume. They needed to sustain the illusion that they were still fully in charge, that they still held the power. They were not just unwanted visitors. They were invaders, attempting to thrive off the independent life I had constructed because their own lives had completely decayed from within. My mother looked at me, her gaze filled with desperation. Eliza, please, you just don't understand the situation. Oh, I replied. My voice came out much colder than I had anticipated. I believe that, for the first time, I actually do. Monday morning, exactly 9:59 a.m., I was sitting at my workbench, smoothly sanding the edge of a broken piece of pottery. The loft felt impossibly quiet, almost suffocatingly so. My family members were completely frozen. They had done zero packing. They simply sat in my living room, staring fixedly at the front door, as if challenging it to move. My mother, Denise, was visibly shaking. My father, Gary, just looked extremely old. My sister was furiously tapping away on her phone, likely venting to friends who didn't actually care. The wall clock ticked past. 10:00 a.m. The sharp, professional sound of a knock arrived precisely on schedule. My family flinched violently. I did not. I set down the sandpaper, rose from my seat, and walked over to the door. I pulled it open. A man wearing a blue work uniform stood there, holding a metal toolbox. AR Trust, he inquired. That's correct, I confirmed. Please come inside. The moment the locksmith stepped across the threshold, their emotional paralysis broke. No, my mother scrambled off the sofa quickly. She rushed right to the doorway, her face pale and streaked with genuine tears this time. Eliza, stop. You cannot follow through with this. We have absolutely nowhere left to go. The house it's just gone. She grabbed my forearm, her fingernails digging into my skin. We are your blood relatives. You can't just throw us out onto the street. I looked down at her. I watched her hand gripping my arm, and I saw the desperate fear in her eyes. I felt nothing at all. Only a distant, icy echo. I gave you $17,000, Mom, I stated. My voice was as low and quiet as the loft used to be. I handed over my grandfather's inheritance because my sister supposedly needed a boost. I was always there for you. I have always showed up. I gently pulled my arm completely free of her grasp. But when I finally created just one safe space for myself, you didn't ask to stay. You simply invaded. You assigned a monetary value to my childhood and attempted to charge me for it. You told me I wasn't the manager of my own home. We made a single mistake, she pleaded, weeping. No, I corrected her. It wasn't a mistake. It was an established pattern. I suppressed a short, bitter sound. And I am simply the person finally putting an end to it. I looked past her to the locksmith, who was tactfully pretending to examine his drill bits. You can begin with the deadbolt, please, I instructed him. Eliza, my father shouted, finally rising to his feet. You stop this action right now. I turned back to face them. All three of them were standing there, unified for the first time by their panic. This arrangement is not a family unit, I said clearly. It is a hostile takeover attempt, and I am simply evicting the invaders. I looked at my mother one last time. Goodbye, Mom. And I shut the door in her face. I didn't lock it immediately. I just held the knob firmly, standing on my side of the wood as the electric drill started to whir loudly. It was truly the loudest, most beautiful sound I had ever heard. The drilling stopped. About 20 minutes later, the locksmith gathered his tools. You are completely secured, ma'am. That is a maximum security lock. Nobody is getting past that without your specific key. Thank you very much, I said. He departed. I closed the door properly, and this time I secured the deadbolt myself. The sharp, final click of the new lock settling into place was the cleanest, most definitive sound I have ever experienced. I stood completely alone in my loft. The silence had returned, but it wasn't the delicate, fragile quiet of before. It was firm. It was structural. It was completely mine. I walked back to my workbench, to the shattered kintsugi bowl. I selected the next damaged fragment, carefully prepared the gold lacquer, and applied it precisely to the edge. I fitted it back into its correct spot, my hands entirely steady. I wasn't just repairing a piece of pottery. I was intentionally constructing a boundary. I was showing myself that a life can be broken and still be reassembled, not to disguise the fissures, but to transform those cracks into the strongest, most exquisite elements. 6 months later, I stood on a quiet street in Charleston, South Carolina's historic district. A sign painter was finishing the gold leaf lettering on a glass shopfront. It read, "The Gilded Page, Rare Book and Paper Restoration." Behind the glass was my new studio, my work, and my future. And yes, it is entirely owned and operated by the AR Antiquarian Restoration LLC Trust. Because you never construct a fortress only to leave the rear entrance unlocked. If you have made it this far into the story, you might have felt it too. That feeling of existing on the edges of your own family, being the quiet one, the invisible one, the one always expected to be practical, to occupy less space, to absorb everyone else's chaos and never cause any of your own. I want you to hear this message. You do not need their approval to be worthy of respect. You do not need their invitation to establish your own territory. Your true legacy is not the role they designated for you. Your legacy is the secure peace you build for yourself. It is the life you successfully restore, piece by piece, until it is demonstrably stronger than it ever was before. You are not invisible. You just haven't been truly seen yet. Thank you for listening to my story.